Good day, everyone that has tuned into this session. A very, very warm welcome once again to this session on Unit 1, Reflective and Effective Teaching and Learning. Very important aspect, the most important, because when we teach, we want it to be effective, but we need to reflect on our teaching for it to be effective. Now, if we look at the unit outcomes, then we see these outcomes are set so that we can see at the end of the module, yes, with the 5 units, but now specifically on Unit 1, what the outcomes is that we want to achieve with regards to this. So first of all, it is define reflective and effective teaching. We begin with a theory, so we're going to define what it is, what reflective and effective teaching is. Then we need to identify theories that are relevant to reflective and effective teaching. Once again, starting with the theory so that we can assist you to navigate towards the implementation in practice of these theories. Now, after we've identified these theories, we're going to discuss theories in relation to the learning process of teaching. We're going to reflect upon and apply theories and principles of effective and reflective teaching. Then we need to go to the different contexts in the foundation phase and reflect on how we're going to and when and where are we going to implement these theories. And as I've mentioned, this module to me as the lecturer, but my interest is also in this teaching in foundation phase, is the most important module in your foundation phase degree, because this is the basis from where you will do everything in your classroom. And everything in your classroom starts with effective teaching. So if you are a visual learner, this model will help you to remember the outcomes better. And here we have just narrated them. And so we are going to dive right into the first outcome. And that will be the definition. Now, what is effective teaching? Effective teaching focuses on the learner outcomes. Very important. We cannot go into a classroom without learner outcomes, because you have got a specific time in which you have to teach a lesson, and now you have to structure that time. And you also have your curriculum that you need to teach, and then we set outcomes to make sure that we teach the most important concepts to our foundation phase learners. So the beginning of effective teaching will be to set learner outcomes. And then definitely also look at teacher behavior. Teacher need to plan, teacher need to prepare. And that is very, very important for effective teaching. If you do not prepare, you will not likely reach the stage of effective teaching. And then your classroom processes, very important to plan as well, because if you've planned, are your processes then in place when the children come into the classroom, the learners come into the classroom? Are their experiments ready? Are their artworks and sources for their artworks ready? Are their books ready, marked and everything? So for effective teaching, you should focus on setting good and strong learner outcomes. Your teacher behavior regarding planning is very important, and then your classroom processes. Now, what is reflective teaching? It sounds sort of the same, but it's definitely not the same. The one is the prerequisite for the other one. All right, so now let us just go through then. Reflective teaching is deliberate, it is purposeful, it is structured, it is about linking theory to practice, it is about learning, and about the teacher's professional development and growth. Now let's see how these aspects fit into one another. So after you have taught a lesson in the classroom, then reflective teaching comes in because you reflect on what you have taught. So the reflective teaching is deliberate. You want to know at the end of your lesson what went wrong and what was good. So it's purposeful in that section because what went wrong, you need to change and fill that space with something else. And then it is very structured. You will look at your introduction of your lesson, what went wrong, what was good. Then to the body of your lesson, to the conclusion and the assessment. So it's very structured when you look back on a taught lesson. And then definitely about linking theory to practice. Because reflective teaching is you will look at your theories, those that we're going to discuss in just a while, and then how you can implement those in practice. And then the reflective teaching is all about learning, because after your lesson, you need to find out what did the children learn. So you reflect on the processes that went on in the classroom. Did the children learn? Was discipline a problem? Was the temperature in the class, the lighting in the class, anything? What impacted on learning in your lesson? And then definitely also about your teacher's professional growth and development. If you do not keep up to all the developments in your field, may it be maths, may it be life skills, may it be social development of children, then you will have less to offer to the children than a teacher that has done many workshops on all these issues that I've mentioned. So to develop yourself as a teacher is very, very important, and is part of reflective teaching, because now when you went for a workshop, that there are new content and things that you can work into your lessons. So the professional development in growth, very important. Now, let us look at what effective teaching is. We had now a context of reflective teaching, effective teaching. If we look at the characteristics that may have bearing on the teacher effectiveness, that will be personality traits, sex, age, knowledge and training. So to be an effective teacher, certain personality traits will make of you a more effective teacher as another teacher in the school. Because when you are a foundation phase teacher, you need to have very special personality characteristics. You need to be soft, warm, still strict. You have to engage with the learners. That you must absolutely see that classroom as this is your children that you want to care for. So care is one of the most important personal characteristics. If you don't care, effectiveness of your teaching will not be as great as it should be. Well, definitely, gender is a issue that men will, and there are men in our foundation phase classes that um, gender will impact on the effectiveness of your classes. And your age, maybe you are a young teacher in your classroom, you can get up and get some more paper for the children, quickly run to do this to enhance your lesson. So age will definitely, and when you're a bit more matured in age, then things may go a little bit slower in your classroom, but still you can be an effective teacher. And then we have spoken about knowledge and training, very important to be a effective teacher. Now here we've also got the most important teacher characteristics. To be an effective teacher is your personality and will, intelligence, the sympathy and tact that you have for the young ones, Open-mindedness. Everything cannot just go the teacher's way. The children also have a say, and we need to give them a chance to give their opinion. And then a sense of humor. Absolutely a sense of humor. That will keep everything in your classroom light, and that will contribute towards effective learning. Now, these characteristics are derived from the black box research, and you can read all about that in your study guide. Now, here are more issues with regards to effective learning. There are different variables of effective learning, and this is a very important aspect that you need to grasp and always keep in your mind when you are planning. So there are context variables, process variables, and product variables. Now, if you look at context variables, that is the teacher and the learner characteristic. So here are many individuals, and that spells out how the context is going to be colored. So the teacher have her personality, the learners have their characteristics and personality. So that is the context. The other part of context is also the subject content. That is what you get from your curriculum. So that is also a variable. Is it too difficult for the children? Is it too easy for them? So those are the context variables. Then the process variables. Those are the perceptions, the strategies, and the behaviors of teacher and learners. And then we also have dynamics of learning tasks and activities. So those dynamics will also be with regards to your learning tasks. In how many minutes do the children need to finish the tasks? How long are the activities? Are the activities of quiet nature, loud? So that is the process variables. And then we have the product variables. And product comes from outcome, and then you need to reach a product. So all educational outcomes desired by teachers. That will be your product variables. And your product variables, as I said, will be your assessments with the children, or may it be just written assessments, or the products that the children did. Say, for instance, in your art class, they have made this and that. With clay or a statue or something, so that will be your product variables. So your effective teaching, if one dissect effective teaching in these kind of variables, then you can really become an effective teacher if you focus on context, process, and product. Now, in summary, effective teaching is based on focus on context, your classroom processes, and your learner outcomes. Now, if we have a look at what teachers have with regards to effective teaching, they need to have a deep understanding of the content. You need to know the content that you are going to present to the learners. And your learning theory, which we are about to discover, different learning theories, learner distinctness, know the learners in your class, which cultures, which faiths, all of that, and focus on each learner as an individual that can reach his potential. Planning, we have seen, that is very important. You cannot go into a classroom with haphazard planning, then effective teaching will be out of your reach. And then classroom educational techniques, that also resides with your strategies that you are going to use. Understanding of learner evaluation, different ways of assessment and evaluation. And then you need to have a greater repertoire of instructional, management, and assessment knowledge and skills. So instructional comes to the theories and the techniques, the management, the processes in your class, and then the assessment. Now, in these sessions, we are not necessarily going to work with the activities. What I just want to mention is that it's very important for you to actively do the activities in your study guide. And that will bring you to a greater extent where you manage your understanding of the content if you go through the activities. Now, first of all, we are going to start with the teaching theories of Robert Marzano. As I've mentioned in the interview, in the overview, it is very, very important to start with theory, and that is what we're going to engage you with in your studies. But those theories need to become practical in your classroom when you are there one day. So we are going to give you several theories, and then you, as a teacher, you can select one, two, three, or all of them that resonates with you, that you feel will assist you to become an effective teacher in the classroom. But we are giving you each of these theories so that you can see what each of these theorists said about education, how they saw the teaching process. And then you can choose which one of these. And as I said, you can be eclectic. You could choose from this and that and the other theorist what you like of their theories, and you can implement that in your classroom. Because all of these theories, they mentioned and gave us frameworks on which we can work in our classroom to be an effective teacher. And that is the goal, to be an effective teacher, because then the children will learn more effectively. Right now, Robert Marzano is one of the most respected educators in the world. If you have got some time, you're most welcome to Google Robert Marzano and read more about his life and how he dedicated his life to education, to assist teachers to be more effective. And he developed techniques to help teachers go beyond traditional methods. Now, we all know the traditional methods are just those that the teacher talk, the children listen, and then they do. But there are much more teaching methods that we can introduce into our classrooms for effective teaching. And then he developed tools to help teachers to be more effective. Now, Marzano's framework for effective teachers is that definitely begin by setting goals. You cannot go into a classroom, teach haphazardly. You have to set goals. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what I have to get across for my children and assess them on. And then definitely also provide feedback. If there was an assessment, you need to get back to the child and say, all right, this was 18 and 20. Very well, very well. Maybe you can look in this and this. Okay, this one, Carly has 12 out of 20. Then you need to discuss what happened here. Why weren't you able to achieve more? Ask the child about what happened the previous day. So you need to be engaged. So provide feedback on every assessment and help learners interact with new knowledge. Assist them while you are say, for instance, you teach on a bit more difficult subject, that you can ask questions, see if they understand, repeat what you've said. So the learners need to interact with the knowledge. Provide learners with stimulations and low-stake competition. Well, stimulations are always nice if you bring into your classroom uh, playful things, games, and then low-stake competition that just motivates them to be interested in what is going on in the classroom. And then engage learners. Yes, they must be part of your teaching with whatever you can give them. Or there must be visuals on the wall, or there must be uh, physical objects that they can move and sort and do things. So engage with learners. Yeah, the learners need to be engaged, but you need to get engaged with the learners as well. So the asking of questions and, your facial expressions, your body expressions, those are all that you can use in your lesson to be an effective lesson. Because if you have a certain body language, the children will say, okay, now teacher is going to do this and that for us. Or if you have just the apathy, then the children will sit there and they won't be interested. And yeah, that won't be effective teaching. Definitely establish and maintain classroom rules. That is just like planning, classroom rules is very important. Maintain relationships with learners. Yeah, I just want to say your relationship with your learners must be, and there's no compromise on this, it must be that you expect the most of each individual. You know, we do not all like each other. And sometimes if we don't like someone, we are not respectful towards that one. We don't give them opportunities. We sideline them in the classroom, and that happen between children and teachers. But if you have a good relationship with each learner in your classroom, that will be just wonderful, because then that learner will feel your appreciation of them being in the classroom. They will feel that you expect of them to um, have the best, to be the best they can. And you know, that is the self-fulfilling prophecy. If a learner feels he's accepted in the classroom, they and the learner, our teacher expect a lot of them, then they will live up to your expectations. There are many research done on this, and this is the self-fulfilling prophecy. I will become what you think of me. So let us put it in a positive spirit. Think highly of every individual in your classroom, because if you neglect learners, they will not rise to the occasion and um, get to their self-actualization. So communicate high expectations of each individual. Now you can ask yourself the following question, but this is a self-assessment question to become a more effective teacher. What will I do to establish and communicate learning goals, track learner progress and celebrate success, help learners interact with new knowledge? How will I do to engage, or what will I do to engage? And there you can take all the different aspects in Robert Marzano's framework, turn it into questions, and use it in your classroom. And this will definitely put you on a firm path to effective learning if you can answer all these in a positive manner, and how you will um, put in place to answer these questions. Here is another activity from your study guide. And yeah, you can do it on your own in your study guide. Now, here's a picture of Robert Marzano, and he, apart from the framework that he gave us, he also pointed out 9 effective teaching strategies. Now, that will be choose a teaching strategy. And we will come to the section or the unit where we will discuss teaching strategies. So there are many to choose from. You just need to choose the right one for the specific content that you are going to teach. And then look at these teaching strategies, and then identify the similarities and differences between the strategies, and then you pick one that will be relevant for you with your personality, for the children, learners to be learner-centered, and then also for the content. Because as I said, different content needs different strategies. And summarize and take notes while the uh, learners are in the classroom with their activities. You need to take notes of what is happening, and this is also then kind of a reflection. What is going wrong? Who responds to what? Say, for example, Tabu, he didn't grasp this concept. And Kulinda, she laughed about something that was strange. So you need to make notes. May it be um, notes on a pad or just mental notes, but this is also kind of, if you want to be effective, you need to be reflecting on what has happened in your classroom. And then reinforcing effort and provide recognition. That is once again, have that relationship with your learners. Reinforcing effort. You've done this well. And next time, I'm sure you're going to get this 100% right. Okay, I think you can try maybe a little bit harder, but I can see you've put a lot into this picture. So give that recognition to the children. Homework and practice, yes, very important to be effective. Uh, Learners have to practice what you have told them. They need to go home, and the more they practice, the more they will remember, and the more their skills will develop. And then also non-linguistic representations, that will be then how, I wouldn't say just colorful, but how print rich your classroom is with visuals in against the walls. So non-linguistic representations, things for them to read, things for them to see. And then cooperative learning, very good teaching strategies for children to work together so that they can, then it is more than content that you enhance. It is also social development if the learners work in groups and do cooperative learning. And then setting objectives and providing feedback. You can see that we are mentioning objectives, reflective, effective teaching over and over and over, because that is just the basis of teaching in the foundation phase. And then, yes, generating and testing hypotheses. So this hypothesis sounds very um, high, but actually a hypothesis is just maybe this can work next time. So that maybe is what you're going to try next time. So that is what a hypothesis is. So that is part of reflective teaching. So you will see what worked not. And then my hypothesis will be, this will work better next time. And then also for effective strategies, have your answers, your cues, and advance. So you have of advance, you will have then your questions at your cues, and you will have questions on different levels on where the learning of the child takes place. Some lower, some learners are they are not all intellectually on the same level. So that is also for your effective teaching, so that you can have activities for the children on maybe a lower intellectual level, so that they can also feel that they have achieved something. But never forget the more advanced intellectual child, that you stimulate him or her on their level. There's again a activity that you can do in your study guide. And as I said, this will help you also more to relate and understand the content in your study guide. Now, yeah, here we again have the reflective teaching. So what is reflective reflection? What is reflective practice? And why should we reflect? We have already spoken on reflection a bit, but if we delve deeper into this concept, then reflection is all about your thought processes. So you, as you see in the picture, you look at something and then you think about what you look at. So that is exactly what happens in the classroom. You are in the classroom, you see what happens, you experience what you teach, and then you think about, oh, this didn't work. Wow, this was a wonderful activity. So that is reflection. That is your thought process. And that is looking back at events and asking questions. And then looking forward into the future. What am I going to do to better what went wrong today? Self-assessment of practice and competence. So you ask yourself, oh, did I do it right? Was I enthusiastic today? Was I too complacent? So that is all part of reflection. And it can be used to improve and your teaching practice. Definitely. Well, it has to, because if you reflect, you will not do the same things that you've done that haven't worked. So reflection, very important. Now, what is reflective practice? That requires that teachers sees themselves as lifelong learners and continue learning and developing after initial training and stay up to par with new research and development. So it's not only that you look at the day that you have spent with your learners, what worked and what worked not. There's another component, and that is to be a lifelong learner. And it is so wonderful. You know, when I, 30 years back, was in my grade 2 classroom, we did not have computers. Google wasn't even an idea, nothing like that. We had to go to the library and read up on whatever we wanted to know. We had to photocopy pictures, and in those days there weren't even color photocopiers. If I think of what is at your disposal today to make an enormously effective teacher, I would just like to tell you, go for it. Anything that you can use, the most that you can use, please do. Yes, so be lifelong learners. Attend workshops that the district at your school will have in your school and learn a lot. And I'm not sure how far the CPD point system is already in place, but that will be that it is community development points, and there you have to attend a few trainings throughout the year and add your credits for each training, and that at the end of the year you need to have a certain number of credits. And that is just that the government is trying to keep teachers to be lifelong learners. So yes, always keep on your research and your development in your field. Now there's another activity that you could do in your study guide. And then the question, why should we reflect? Now there's a little voice inside our heads to tell us when something went wrong. That is just inborn in us, we know, because we can see from the reaction of the learners or the reaction of an audience if your paper went well, or your talk, or then your lesson. And what should we have done? Or what should we have said? And that can also help us focus on both the positive and the negative events to improve our future practice. Now, for example, reflection helps to improve your future practice. It opens new avenues for professional development. It enhances creativity, help teachers overcome their personal assumptions, enhances emotional intelligence. Now, on this one, enhances emotional intelligence, because now, if you are a reflective teacher, you can definitely not be a teacher that just want to have her say in the classroom. So when you are reflective and you need to look at the diversity in your classroom, then you suddenly need to get out of your comfort zone with your teaching and choose different teaching strategies to suit the learning of the children, because the learners also learn in different ways. So you as a teacher need to select the uh, um, learning strategies that will suit the learners. So your emotional intelligence will then also let's call it, become bigger, because it's not you anymore, but you cater for the diverse classroom. And then leads to healthy work-life balance, because you are also going to reflect. I'm spending a lot of time and in my classroom or at school with a lot of things. Is that really necessary? What about my life at home, the exercises I need to do, the cooking for the family, or assisting with homework of my own children? There's definitely a need for life-work balance. But that can only be effective if you are a reflective person. Okay, another activity. So this one is actually a nice activity. Identify your favorite teacher as a student. What characteristics make them memorable to you so many years later? So here you will reflect on what was good, what was bad, and who you want to be according to what you experienced. So do this activity. This is a wonderful one to reflect. And then we have theories on reflective practice. But there's a lack of agreement about different modes of reflecting. So I wouldn't say a lack of agreement. It is just many people that have their own view of reflective teaching. Now, there is a particular cycle for reflective practice. So you have an experience. So what happens to us? And then there is then the reflection, the process that helps us think through the experience. And then your action. What do we do about it? What is the result of our reflection? There's another activity, 1.6, that you can do in your study guide. And then the theories on reflective teaching. Now, first of all, we have John Dewey. Many of you may have heard about John Dewey, but yes, he was really a very, very uh, um, good and feisty activist for experience in the classroom. So what his famous saying is, we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. Yes, we will learn from experience, but if you reflect to say just that thing, what went wrong, what was good, what can I change? So that is the reflection on the experience. So the reflection is a deliberate, active process. It is a meaning-making process. It is systematic, rigorous, disciplined way of thinking rooted in scientific inquiry, and then occurs during interaction with others and requires an attitude that values the personal and intellectual growth of the children in your classroom. Now, John Dewey has put out 5 features of reflection. So first of all, it is perplexity and confusion. Okay, what is going on here? And then there's the interpretation of your events. And then you examine the issue. Then you construct an initial hypothesis. As we said, what can I do to make it better? And then you construct a plan of action. So now you can see from the beginning of this unit, we have actually repeated so much on what reflection is. By this time, I'm sure you are very well versed with what reflection in teaching is. So you look at this experience, you feel it, then you ask a question. Is it good? Is it bad? If it was bad, what can I do to change it? If it was good, ask yourself the question, what can I do to make it better? That will be an effective teacher. All right, here again is an activity which you can do in your study guide. And then we have a second theorist on the issue of reflective teaching, David Shawn. Now he said of Donald Shawn, he said reflective practice is a dialogue of thinking and doing through which I become more skillful. Well, that is exactly what we've said throughout this session on Unit 1, that if you think and you reflect, you become more skillful because you ask yourself, what can I do better? And then your skills are enhanced. So give careful attention to your experiences, analyze and prioritize the right issues, understand the context, and focus on personal and moral dimensions. Here I just want to focus on understand your context. Very important, because the context may differ from school to school. So if you are in a rural school and you have taught there and you move to an urban school, that is a very different context, and you need your strategies to be changed. So you will have to reflect very hard, especially if you change context, on what is it that this context wants to have effective teaching. And then also focus on your personal and moral dimensions. Never never let your moral dimensions lower because you are in a different context. You need to have high moral dimensions and lead your learners with you into moral high ground. Right now, Donald Shawn, also give us a bit more of a sort of a detailed look at reflection. So according to him, reflection in action, and then he also mentions reflection on action. Now, this is actually very interesting. So if we look at reflection in action, we see that that is reflection as something happens. So you in action, you are busy with it. So as something happens, that is reflection in action. So that is what you are experiencing at the moment. You're thinking on your feet, think about what to do next, and you need to act immediately. So this is a very impromptu reflection. And the other reflection is on action after something has happened. So you think about something that has happened, you think about what you would do differently, and there you can take your time to search for different strategies that you would use to make things different. This is a very interesting dissection of reflection. So as something happened in action, on action is a later reflection. Then we get to Graham Gibbs. His reflective cycle, he says that, first of all, the description. So what happened? Then feelings. What were you thinking or feeling? Then you evaluate what was good, what was bad, and then you analyze what sense can you make of this situation? And then your conclusion, what else could I have done? And then your action plan for the next session, for your next lesson. If the situation arose again, what would you do? So this is Graham Gibbs' reflective cycle. So this is just a visual representation of what he feels reflective teaching is. And as you can see, all of these theorists and what we have said from the beginning of the unit, reflective teaching is this action, feelings, evaluation, what will I do next? It is just that different theorists add a bit more detail as others, but they are mostly the same. So now what I also mentioned is we are giving you these theories for you to go through, and then you can choose which of these. Will it be Gibbs? Will it be Shawn? Which theorist information do you use? Do you feel most comfortable with to use in your classroom? There's another activity. Draw a picture of one bad and good experience in your life, and then you make use of Gibbs' reflective stages to reflect on your experience. This is a very nice activity, and then exactly what you are doing with your experience, that you will do with what happened in your classroom. Now here we have another, David Kolb, and his learning cycle, he said, concentrate on immediate experiences and then feedback from these experiences. So it's experience, then you reflect, then you theorize and think of alternatives, and then your experimenting is deciding what to do it, how to do it different. So this is again David Kolb's way of seeing how reflective teaching looks. Now this is David Kolb, and here he is analyzing learning styles. Now you can work through this section in your study guide. This is kind of a difficult figure to unfigure, if one can say it in that way, because here we have a continuum of active experimentation in doing and then reflective observation by watching. And then we here have a concrete experience, and here we have an abstract conceptualization. And then we have different learning styles in the middle. So if you are a learner or a teacher that learns by feeling and watching, then you are a diverging learner. If you like to think and watch, so this is feel and watch, this one assimilating is think and watch, then you are an assimilating learner. And think and do, converging learner, and an accommodating learner will feel and do. So it is different for each of these sections. So this is feel and watch, feel and do. So it's not the same thing. This is think and watch, think and do. It's not the same thing. So your learners will fall in one of these quadrants. And you have to plan your teaching so that you include all of these kinds of learners. Those that feel and watch, those that think and watch. Think and do, feel and do. So this is the contribution of David Kolb, but kindly read the section, the narrative section on David Kolb in your study guide. There's once again activity that you can do in your study guide, activity 1.9. And then the next one is James Stronger. Now, he also put forth his theory on effective teachers. And once again, professional knowledge, instructional planning, instructional delivery, assessment after your delivery. How does your learning environment look? And how are your professionalism towards the class, the school, and the education profession as such? So he says, to be an effective and reflective teacher, you'd need to have these qualities. And those we have repeated throughout the unit. There is another activity, 1.10, which you can look at in your study guide. And another activity that will assist you with reflection when you have these headings for a lesson. At each of these headings, you need to reflect. Is your purpose of the lesson well set out? Is the theme relevant? Is there enough knowledge? Do I assist the learners to gather enough skills, the attitudes and values? So all of these need to be reflected upon if you are planning your lesson. There's another activity that you can do, activity 1.11. And here we have something that maybe you can remember because it is the principles of reflective teaching, 6 of those, and we call it the 6 R's. So it's reacting, recording, reviewing, revising, reworking, and reassessing. So maybe you can take this as a summary of all the theories that you have come across in this unit and use this six R's when you are doing your reflection in your classroom. Now, applying reflective teaching in practice. This is what we have mentioned just now. So the 6 questions that you can ask is the reacting. How will I choose my area of practice? The recording. How will I assess my performance? How I record my reflections? Is it in a notepad? Is it just mental notes? How will I document my reflections? And when will I record my reflections? And if we get to the review, what worked well? What did not work as planned? What could I try next time? And then revising, what will need to change? And then reworking, how will I put my new action plan into place? And then reassessing, how successful were the new strategies? So it is a continuous cycle of experience, reflect, analyze, rework, put in place. And what you've put in place, you will reflect upon again. And there the circle starts again. That is really a never-ending practice. Your activity 1.12, how does retrospective reflection help? And this is according to the case study that was given in your study guide. So kindly just read the case study and then you can do the activity 1.12. And then we get to the conclusion of this unit. Now, constantly reflect on your practice. If there's really one thing we would like you to take away from this unit, is that it needs to be a mental issue that you need to reflect, enable to be an effective teacher. So the 2 words that you need to take home is effective and reflective. The one cannot be without the other. So for you to be an effective teacher, you need to be a reflective teacher, because then you can reinvent all your teaching over and over again as time goes on and situations differ. Be responsive to your learners' needs, issues, and outcomes. That is, again, what I said, the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you really expect the most of each individual, those children will live up to your expectations. And they will feel cared for. They will feel comfortable in their class. And then, if you are comfortable with something, you will try and try again. Then we have the different theories on effective and reflective foundation phase teacher practices. Robert Marzano, Stronger, Dewey, Sean, Kolb, and Gibbs. So because we are still busy with our undergraduate studies and university or college is a place where we need to have our theory in place, it is definitely necessary for you to know each of these theorists, what they have said. Very always important for the exam, because from, say for instance, the lecturer give you an exam question on kindly give me a description of what Robert Marzano said about effective teaching, and then we will give you a practical session. Now present a lesson or plan a lesson on Marzano's theory. And if you don't know Marzano's theory, then you won't be able to answer both the questions. So very important that you need to study the detail of each of these theories for effective foundation phase teachers. Yes, and then finally we can just close by saying a teacher always needs to make decisions in context using personal judgment. And then it is not the teacher anymore. We have moved into a period where learner-centered education is now the focus. So thank you for joining this session. We will have our next session then on Unit 2. And until then, happy reading and happy learning. Thank you and goodbye.